Hello, everybody. I'm Alfred, and I would like to talk to you about the proposed new set of lockdowns with regards to the so called Delta variant of the COVID. Understand something, when this lockdown started, actually before it, the signs of this coming was obvious. First of all, Bill Gates talked about a coming pandemic, and this was years ago, and he did it during a TED talk. And of course, he planned for it, and he was actually a part of a committee, and that is what the Bill Gates Foundation was doing. A committee that will get the world ready and get to see how the world react and really get the world prepared for a pandemic. Understand that this is a man that believes that the future of the world depends on the reduction of the population. He believes that there are more people in the earth than the earth can sustain. Of course, that is a slap on the face of God, because you are saying that God created an earth or created a world without factoring in, the ability of that world having enough to take care of the people in the world. And of course, this is what happens when people don't believe in God. When people don't believe in God, that is when things like this happen, like the global warming issue. The people who would think that even though they were not a part of creating this world, or they were not here when this earth started, they believe that it is dependent on them, for them, through whatever so-called scientific levels of understanding that they have attained, that if they do not do this or that, the world is going to fall apart. They forget, even the funny thing, they are the same people who talk about evolution. So, but they don't believe that the world can adapt and evolve, and nature can adapt and evolve to the so-called changes. When you look at the global warming nonsense that folks have been talking about, that the world will because of global warming, if we are not all eco-friendly, this will happen and that will happen. All the dates that they set that by this time this will happen, all of it has passed. They said that Nigeria, that Lagos will be under the sea by the year 2000. 2000 came and went. Some people were like, it will be like 2010. 2010 came and left. All the nonsense that they have been predicted, that we all have to be eco-friendly and all of that, and understand that there are corporations who are making billions from all this move towards eco-friendliness, and they are locking down patents for several things, just like this vaccine has a patent, and Bill Gates is enjoying the benefits of this. Understand that even viruses like the Rockefeller Foundation and even Fauci's foundation, they own the patent to some of these viruses. How can somebody have a patent over a virus? And the records are publicly available. Everybody sees this, and nobody is suspicious. And also the same person, is the one that is responsible for giving everybody vaccines. Now they are now saying that the vaccines don't work, or that actually that it is the new strain, the Delta strain. Which time did they roll out new testing machines to test if people have Delta strains? You see, the reality of the matter is that this entire COVID thing has always been a joke. It has all been a scheme. It has all been a scam. And that is why Bill Gates is free from any repercussions. All the companies that are producing these vaccines, they are making deals with the government, and the government is making it on behalf of the people, that the people cannot sue. The government is forcing you to take the vaccines, and if there are negative effects of the vaccines on you, you cannot sue. You cannot sue the makers of the vaccines, and you cannot sue the government. Who gives the government that right? Throughout this entire period, the government has been taking a lot of rights and liberties that they should not have. They have shown their dictatorial side, and this is why I keep on emphasizing the importance of Christians, the righteous. The Bible makes it clear that when the evil rule, there is mourning, but when the righteous rule, there is rejoicing. And look, if you are not a Christian, you cannot be righteous. If you are not a Christian, it is impossible for you to be righteous. You see, how can you, first of all, you're not being a Christian. On one hand, let me take it from two sides. First of all, have you heard the gospel? So you mean to tell me you rejected the gospel? That in itself is a huge sin. You rejected Jesus Christ. You rejected God. If you have heard the gospel and you are not a Christian, you have rejected Christ. That is where you are. So how can you be righteous? You have rejected righteousness itself. You have rejected holiness itself. For God is holy. God is holiness. He's not just holy, He's holiness. Just like God doesn't just love the world, God is love. So, if you are not in Christ, have you heard the gospel? If you've heard the gospel, clearly that in itself is a great, you have chosen darkness by not responding in the affirmative to the gospel. Then let us say you have not heard the gospel. The fact remains that God is light and God is righteousness. The fact that you have been estranged, understand that man, lost that union with God. And that is why the gospel is actually the ministry of reconciliation. If you have not been reconnected with God, you have not been reconnected with righteousness. You have not been reconnected with holiness. You have not been reconnected with love. So, that position you are in is a position of zero righteousness. So, it is only a Christian that should be allowed to occupy any position of power if you want to see happiness, if you want the people to rejoice. And when you look through history, you would see that this is a fact. Now, there are those who will bring up the Inquisition, and then, the problem with that, like, I heard someone once say something like, when Christians have gotten positions of power, that is when the church suffered most. That is a lie from the pit of hell. That is a lie from the enemy. That is you now being confused. You have bought a lie. You are now trying to suggest that somebody who was killing people willy-nilly but called himself a Christian is therefore a Christian. But if you saw somebody else in church or somewhere else not living who didn't perhaps they didn't care for the Bible or anything, but they are just one of the people that feel the checkmark Christian, you would want to preach to that person and bring that person to Christ. Why would you do that? So you are telling me that person that is on the streets, who hasn't killed millions of people, who haven't killed hundreds of people, who says he's a Christian, but you know that he's not born again and all of that, you still go and preach to him? Because in a lot of countries, you see, some people, it is just a matter of affiliation. People just like, oh, I was born into this family, or perhaps my parents went to church, so therefore I'm a Christian. It's like they just pick one. They don't really follow it. It's just like meeting a Catholic who doesn't know what the rosary is. When you meet a Catholic who doesn't know what the rosary is, how Catholic can he be? He doesn't know. He just perhaps, oh, let me just pick this one. This is what I pick Catholic. So it is that kind of thing. That is how many people are go around saying they are Christians. And if you go around winning souls, you will know this. There are a lot of people who, if they are filling a form, they are what I would call form checkmark Christians. If they are filling a form that they ask, what religion are you? Note that Christianity is not a religion, but in that kind of form, they will tick Christian. That is the extent of their Christianity. You see, that is how it is. They don't read the Bible. They do not care. They do not know what is in the Bible. If the Bible comes up, it's like, oh, like I attribute to that. But it's not really part of. It's not part of their life in any way. They don't know anything about it. You want to win those people to Christ, and that is how in most countries, a lot of people are. And you lead them to Christ, you get to know Christ. Then at the same time, you will now look at the Caesars of Rome, or the folks during the Inquisition that were killing people, who did not believe what they believe, and then you call them Christians and say those are representations of Christians in power. No, those are not Christians. What part of the Bible does it say if somebody does not believe in Christianity, you should kill them? That in itself, it says so much about how removed from Christianity that person is, and how that person is after another agenda. You see, and that is just a fact. The early days of the Catholic Church was based upon a whole bunch of things that had nothing to do with Christianity. It just used the facade of Christianity to put forth a political agenda of Rome. And that is why, this is actually even still called the Roman Catholic Church. What business does Christianity have to do with, specifically with Rome? Rome persecuted Christians. Jesus was not Roman. Mary was not Roman. Which of the disciples, apart from Paul, from the and Paul was not even one of the 12. Jesus came for the Jews. So if it was even a Jewish Catholic Church, rather than Roman Catholic Church, it would have even made more sense. But that will still not be accurate, because Jesus is for the whole world. But that even the term Jewish Catholic Church would have been much more sensible than Roman Catholic Church. Even the term Roman Catholic Church, it showed you that it was a plan for colonization. It was a strategy of you can't beat them, join them. Because when you look at the Roman emperor that made Christianity the official quote-unquote religion of Rome, you would see that the guy did not live as a Christian or listen to anything that is truly Christian. It did not show in any part of his life. He killed his own son under the topic of I believe his son slept with one of his younger wives. And he also killed that wife, I believe, in a bathtub with hot water or something. And that same guy, how he had his own conversion story. He actually stole it from Apostle Paul. Understand that Apostle Paul, the road to Damascus, a bright light shone from heaven and all of that, and just spoke to him. So this Roman emperor, his own conversion story was that when he was about to conquer a nation, that Jesus appeared to him, a bright light came and Jesus appeared to him and told him to move forth and conquer in his name. That is what he said, and that is what the records show. How can Jesus tell anybody to conquer in his name? Conquer, as in going around to different nations and be conquering in the name of Jesus. Going around killing people and then forcing them to be a part of your Roman Empire and also convert, forcing them to the Christians. And that is actually the early founding of the Catholic Church. And of course, the best way to attack an original is to create a counterfeit. So when he started doing that, his counterfeit Christianity, which is the Catholic Church, actually became bigger when it comes to the messaging than the original church that was still being persecuted. And the persecution continued. You see, and that is why you could see stories of Donna Isabella and going on, it went on and on. A lot of Christians and saints were still being persecuted, and they were called heretics because they believed in the Bible, and they were preaching a Jesus that was different from the Jesus that the Catholic Church was preaching. So that is actually what the Inquisition was about. The Inquisition was about the persecution of real Christianity by people who created a counterfeit Christianity. Because look at the reality of things. An atheist has nothing to lose. If you put a gun to an atheist and say that Allah is Lord, or say that Jesus is Lord, or say so and so is Lord, an atheist has nothing to lose. They will say it. It's nothing to them. Even if they may not be sure that you will still let them go, it means nothing. But the only person that will refuse to deny Jesus is somebody who is a true Christian and has read in the scriptures that Jesus said, if you deny me before men, I will deny you before my Father in heaven. It is only those who have read that, who believe the Bible and believe what Jesus said there, that will be willing to die. Because to them it is like, wow, what you are putting before me is, you are putting me in a position where I could either choose for you to shoot me, or for you to, back then they didn't have guns, for you to cut off my head, or drive a sword through my heart, or send me to the iron lung, or whatever. You are giving me a decision between death in this world versus eternity in hell. So it is a no-brainer. Somebody who believes in the Bible will choose death in this world over eternity in hell. However, for an atheist, the atheist does not believe it. So the atheist is looking at it as, I can say, I don't believe in Jesus and live. Or I can say I believe in Jesus and die. So they will just go to I don't believe in Jesus. Or people who do not have faith in what Jesus said when he said that if you deny me before men, deny you before my Father in heaven. And when you look at the Inquisition, they were telling people, to recant their blasphemy and all of that, to go back on what they said and what they believe. It is only Christians that will not understand that in Islam, deception is part of Islam. In Islam, it is actually allowed for you in such situations to lie. There are certain things in Islam, like for example, turning the other cheek is not in Islam. In Islam, if someone attacks you, you have the right under Islamic law to kill that person there. That is allowed in Islam. So understand that it is very different from Christianity. So these are things that you have to understand. Different belief systems are quite different. Don't think that all of it, because there are people who think that everything is religious. That sounds religious and say, oh, all of them are so similar. It is not so. So this is something that is you have to understand. A Muslim under Islamic law, if you put a gun to a Muslim's head and say that Jesus is Lord, otherwise I will shoot you, I will cut off your neck. A Muslim is allowed under Islamic law to say in that situation that they believe that Jesus is Lord, and it is not wrong in Islam. That is how that works. But in Christianity, that is not the case. So the only people that were really casualties, the only people that were killed during the Inquisition was through Christianity. So the counterfeit Christianity, which is the Catholic Church, now exploded. It had, it really went big. And when people are first introduced to the counterfeit, the real thing, and when the government and the media as of that time, the information and all of that, was like, this is what Christianity means. That is giving the Catholic Church definition of Christianity as what Christianity is. It became a big hindrance for the true Christianity and the true Christian message, and it was kind of lost for a long time. But due to people searching and God speaking to people over the years, there was a resurgence starting from Martin Luther, and then you see Calvinists and other folks. It started growing, and more revelation with the accuracy of the Bible, and people started getting into it. And of course, this is why in the early days the Catholic Church did not allow people to read the Bible. But all of that being said, we have to be careful about who we are allowed to be in power, because it is all a battle. At the end of the day, it's a battle between good and evil. So we have to be wise. When we keep allowing the world to be in power, look at how, like I said, that when ungodly people are in power, the first people that they attack are Christians. Then Jews, and of course, in most cases, African Americans, because of the similarity between African Americans and Jews. And when you look at a lot of Africans, understand that Jews are really a mixed multitude when it comes to race. And a lot of Africans have Jewish heritage. Jews are not one race in the sense of one complexion. I know that when you look at Israel today, it will seem that way, but that is not true. When you study the Bible, There are people who want to claim that it's only people who are dark skinned who are the true Jews. No, it was mixed. When you look at King David, King Solomon, God wanted these people not to marry other women, because not to marry women that were outside, outside of, who were non-Jewish. So for the reason of those people will turn their hearts, the hearts of David or Solomon against God. But guess what? These men still did it. And even after they did it, do you think that the children they had from such unions, they abandoned them? No. Those children were princes. They were still taken care of. God did not kill them. God did not want them killed. So when they did that and they repented, apart from that, you have to understand that the everyday Jewish people were doing that, because that instruction that God gave was just for the kings. For the king's heart not to be turned to other gods. It was not, there was, when you read far back, you see there was a general instruction like that for all the Jews. You see, but the reality of the matter is that the same way that the kings disobeyed it, other Jewish people disobeyed it. And there is also the aspect of Jews traveling to other nations and reproducing there. And there's also a scripture that talks about God telling the Jews to allow anyone who comes from other nations to them, who converts to their Judaism, their belief, to dwell with them. So that is one way that people became Jews. Also, when you look at, and that means that is different races and all kinds of people from different tribes. Also, when you look at Joseph, who was sold into slavery, who did he marry? Joseph married the daughter of, so that is now Egyptian blood. That is now part of the lineage of the 12 tribes of Israel. You see, he married somebody who was an Egyptian. After he was sold into slavery and he came out of slavery, before he reunited with his brothers, who did he marry? The daughter of the leader of, Egypt. So you can see, so what race, what did the skin color of their child look like? So you can see different races mingle. Even the woman in Jericho that helped, with, the woman who helped with giving information to the Jews, when they were moving forth, after they had left Egypt and, they were moving forth towards the promised land, How many people do you think from different places joined the Jews? As a matter of fact, when you read in the book of Deuteronomy, I believe, Deuteronomy or Exodus, when it was talking about the people as they left Egypt, it says the mixed multitude caused the people to err. What does that mean? It means that it wasn't only the Jews who left Egypt. You see, there was a mixed multitude. It meant those who were Egyptians who were slaves, as well as those who were of other tribes and other nations who were slaves in Egypt also left. Because understand that, picture yourself in that situation. There are camps for slaves, and it's like, okay, the Pharaoh has given out the word that the Jewish slaves, can go, after the 10 plagues, it's like, you guys can go. All the people who were obviously sick of slavery and wanted to be free, but were slaves, they joined the Jews to leave. You see, I won't be surprised if there was hardly any slave left in Egypt after that particular Exodus. Egypt would have had to start restocking slaves again. because everybody will just be like, yeah, yeah. Because understand, it's just a matter of you saying that even if you, no matter what you look like, even if people knew that perhaps your dad was Egyptian, all you had to say was that your mom was Jewish or that your grandfather was Jewish. Because understand that the Jews were mingling, with everybody else. They were mingling with everybody else. So it is not like the Jews, even though that was what God designed, it is not like they all kept to only marrying only Jews. That is not the case. Most of them were, doing their own thing. Because you understand that even when God gives instructions, some people will still do their own thing. So there were a lot of people who, just had Jewish blood, but it is a mixture of different things that was there. But that aside, that just helped to create an environment where everybody will be like, I am with Moses, me too, I'm a Jew, and so that can be their way out of finally being set free, because slavery was for life, and not just for life. Every child that a slave has is also a slave in that system. It is different from an indented servant. Every child that a slave has is also a slave. So it's kind of like cattle, where when you buy cattle, all the cattle that your cattle has is yours, is increasing your wealth. So slaves were sort of natural resource. I should say human resource. Of course, human resource is still a word we use in companies today, and that says a lot. But it was the natural resource of Egypt. There are a lot of people who want to say, there are people today who like to attribute wealth to certain people and say that, because this ruler ruled over this land and this land many years ago, he was the richest man in the world because of the oil under the land. No, at that time nobody had any use for oil. The machines had not yet been invented. Machines were not being used. People did not know the value of oil. They saw, if they dug and they saw oil, and of course for someone to have dug in those days and age and to see oil, that means that place has a lot of oil. When they see that dark water, they will be like, the land is cursed, and they will leave it alone. They didn't know the value of oil. They didn't know what oil was. So you can't add that to the wealth. So the reality of the matter is that one of the key resources, one of the key natural resources, if you would say, of Egypt was slavery. So that was something you have to understand. A lot of people were slaves. That was actually what helped with their economy. So all these different people from different nations joined the Jews to Exodus. So think about all the different colors and shapes and all of that. So all these people that are trying to pinpoint what skin color Jesus looked like when he was on earth, it is completely foolish and ignorant. You have to understand that time. There are people who want to go into debates, and it's of course the Black Lives Matter crowd and all these people who are so full of hate and resentment towards anybody whose skin is light. They have to get away with this obsession over skin tone, because understand that you don't know how busy your ancestors were. You don't know who your ancestors slept with and who they didn't sleep with, and understand that in all this conquering, people did not discriminate. When it came to sex, there was no discrimination. As a matter of fact, even during the height of slavery, when, I believe it was Switzerland, when they got slaves from Africa, they sterilized them, the female slaves, and they slept with them. So it goes to show a lot. A lot of the slave masters slept with the, or I would say raped the African women, most of them. So these are things that you have to realize, and that is why when even when you look at African Americans today, and of course due to ancestry.com and all of that, when you look at their blood and tests are run on them, you see that they are not 100% African. You see that their ancestry is from here and there. You see where they will say this person is 2% European or 5% European or 5% Dutch, all of that. Where did all these foreign races come into the ancestry of an African American? It is because of all the things that all the different ancestors that they have that they want to deny, or at least they do not acknowledge when they talk all this nonsense of BLM. Because all African Americans, none of you are pure Africans. Let me say that again. All of you African Americans, especially any of you who can be traced back to the days of slavery, none of you are 100% African. You have whites in your ancestry. I have said it before. It's just common sense. The African slaves, the female slaves, what was their use? What was their purpose? And who bought them? And the person that was buying them is not the white man. What is his criteria? What will make him pick an African female slave? What is he looking at? So you see an African female slave who is basically probably is not fully clothed, and also she does not speak the language or understand his language. So, and clearly she doesn't know how to cook. She doesn't know how to clean, at least the way the white man wants his house to be clean, because this is somebody that is just fresh from Africa at that time, when African, it was just African huts. We didn't have there were no mansions in Africa or bungalows and all of that, of the white man standards and all of that. You could even see videos today of people who were taken from Africa by showing them cutlery. They didn't even know what cutlery was. So what skill set does that African woman possess that is making the white man buy the African female slave? It was just the beauty. And why is the beauty of any interest to him? Because he planned to sleep with her. So the part of history that all the people who are talking about slavery don't focus on was that, as far as when it comes to the female slave trade, it was about sex slavery. And understand that many of the slaves who were bought became wives, or they played the role of wives in the houses of the white men, especially old white men who, there was no longer anybody who was a white female that would be interested in them or wants anything to do with them. They could simply buy female slaves from Africa and then have their way with them. Also, they are the children of white men, when, of course, since the Africans were their property, was their family property, so as the African female slaves were their family property, where do you think the white teenagers were doing their adultery and all of that? Where do you think it started from? Was it with the white girl? Understand that in those days and age, a woman had to be a virgin when she got married. If she was not a virgin, as a matter of fact, on her wedding night, they could return her back to her father's house. That was the way it was then. So who is the scapegoat for a teenager? Because in that kind of situation, no woman wants to give it up. No teenage girl and all of that. Now people don't mind, as that law is, as people don't have that. It was never really a law. It was just the way things were, it was just the way society was, but as that is lifted, all the things like that would have been restrictions to promiscuity has been lifted. So that is why there's a lot of promiscuity now that wasn't there. Before, if you wanted to commit adultery, who would you commit adultery with? You cannot commit adultery with a married woman, because before, at that time, there were really no condoms. So there's the problem of if she gets pregnant and then also the child looking like you, there was that problem. there was also the problem of what if the guy is not around, and then it's like, oh, she was at home and then she got pregnant and all of that. Then let us talk about a woman that is not married. That was out of the question, because if she was not married, there was no condoms. What an unmarried woman getting pregnant? You have gotten into trouble. She has brothers that will beat you up, which was allowed in that day and age. And of course, your own family will allow it, because that protection was there, because everybody understood the importance of large families at that time. That was very important. So there was that. There was, as a matter of fact, if it stayed too long, let us say that a female stayed too long, like past 6 or 4, when she went to visit a man, the parents will come and be like, you have to marry her based on that. And I'm talking about in America. That was how things were then. There were a lot of things. So it is like you couldn't just like now, where people can sleep around. Sleeping around then was not done. And a woman knew that if she allowed you to sleep with her, let's say, like, for example, teenagers and all of that, they sleep around now, but back then she knew that by doing that, it has ruined her chances of marriage. She has disgraced her family, because no man will take her if she's not a virgin. But of course, now men do not mind marrying women who have been around the world. So these kinds of things, are things you have to consider, and you have to put it into context when you are thinking about that era. So who is the logical person that anybody can sleep with? It is the slave that is the property of the white man, who has been conditioned to think of that as a privilege. So those are the casualties, and those are the people, and that is actually one of the reasons why, when you look at African Americans, they are, and you check their ancestry and all of that, their blood DNA is always showing that they are 7% European, or 10% European, or 14% from here, 7% from here, 6% from here, all of that, because of all of this mixing. If Africans were taken from Africa and all of what I said was not true, then their blood will remain African. What will happen is that you may see 5% from Togo, 6% from Ghana, and all of that, but the European aspect will not be there. But you see, these are things that you have to understand. But back to the original points, it's very important that we take all positions of power. Now they are talking about a second lockdown, and like I have said before, last year, I've said it even in a different broadcast. Last year, when all this started, there was shown that there will be a new variant of COVID. Even when the first one was still on, they were planning it, because it's all part of a scheme. Then they were planning for the lockdown. Pastor Chris Oyakalomi made it clear that they want this lockdown to be permanent. Now they have brought back the lockdown now, or they are planning to bring it back, and they are planning to bring back the mask mandates, and saying that now that if you are vaccinated, you still can spread it, so you now have to wear masks. They are just flip-flopping. They are going back. Of course, I believe it is the prayers of the saints, because especially Pastor Chris, he got members of Christ Embassy and people who listen to him to pray around the clock. So all throughout last year, there was somebody praying regarding this issue around the clock. But all of that has stopped this year. And we are now seeing this resurgence of these people going back to their original plan. In spite of how many times Fauci has been caught, Fauci is still coming back and is looking like the authority. And we have this silly leftists that buy into anything that the media tells them, as they have given them, any lie. The same person that has been lying to them, that they have seen are liars, any lie they tell them, they believe. And now that Trump is out of the way, these people are just going full course. There are certain countries like in Australia where even in some companies in Nigeria are telling people, if you are not vaccinated, you will not get paid. In I believe it is It might be Australia also, or somewhere like that, where they actually blocked the SIM cards of all the people that are unvaccinated. So they are forcing people to be vaccinated. This changing of humanity, this altering, this universal altering of the human race. Understand that this nonsense has been tried before. And what did God do? God destroyed the world with a flood. When the fallen angels slept with the daughters of men, and this was so rampant that they gave birth to abominations, and the abominations sleeping with others, it started wiping out the human race and replacing it with an alteration, which is why you have to be careful. God does not like an alteration of his creation. Don't change yourself. There are people who are changing from one gender to the other. Stop that. God does not like it. God does not like it. God is perfectly satisfied. He saw what he created and said it was good. It is not for you to now say that it is not good. For those of you who are buying into nonsense and are saying that you are a man in a female body, a female in a man body, God created what he created and said it was good. But you see, when people don't believe in God, that is when they get into all this nonsense where they believe all kinds of things. They believe that the world is not perfect, that they need to, that the only way for the world to work is for them to either depopulate the earth or abide by some global warming rules, or since there is no God, they can open up their mouth and say that, well, they are a man in a female body, a female in a male body, because you do not believe in a God, a creator and a designer of everything. That is why you believe in, so you can have that free will to believe in that nonsense. If you believed in God, you would have never come to that point where you would believe that creation, does not have any order, or I would say any plan to it. It depends on you to sustain it. Like if you were there when it was created, it depends on you doing this or that for it, that the future of the world depends on you depopulating the earth. Bill Gates probably looks at himself as a hero. He's saying to himself that he's probably taking the Machiavellian approach to saving the world, killing many for the sake of the world's survival. But he has been deceived. Of course, he may just be somebody that is just plain outright evil and doesn't even need the crutch of believing that he's killing many for the sake of saving the planet. That is these are all unfortunate, and these are consequences of people not believing in God. If we had allowed the gospel, if everybody had embraced the gospel, or the gospel was not pushed away from school, from society, from people's mentality, all of this nonsense would have never happened. Look at all the rules. They are still forcing people to get vaccinated, even though it is now clear the same media is telling you that people who are vaccinated are spreading the virus, the new Delta variant, which they don't have a test for, but they are telling you, they are giving you numbers of how many people have it and how they are increasing. You see, so this is very sad. And then at the same time, they are forcing people to take the vaccine. Why? They are saying that the vaccine is not working, and that you still have to wear mask. And then it has gone from the people who have taken first jab and second jab, 2 vaccinations, they now have to take third jab. So when will this jabbery end? All these jabs, when is it going to end? And of course, all of this, the how will I say, the well, you know what, let me just stop here. I've said so much. But we must all be active in taking positions of authority, and we must resist this nonsense. Get lists of companies that are forcing people to take jabs, boycott those companies, start our companies, replace the captains of industry in different companies. That is why I'm upset with churches that are partnering with Facebook that is censoring. Now you want to give Facebook the records of all your church members. Now you want to give Facebook the records of every payment that is made to your church. You even want Facebook to be the one that is processing the payments of tithes from your church members to you in this your partnership with Facebook. And the same company that is partnering with churches is partnering with mosques and all kinds of different things. This is the same company that is saying love is love, that supports the LGBT. That is where you want to build your church, on the foundation of Facebook, on the real estate of Facebook. That is what you want to build your church on. Foolishness. Anyway, make sure you go to Alfred.vip, and if you haven't given your life to Christ, go to salvationprayer.alfred.vip. There's a salvation prayer that says, you just, that prayer is a guideline, you telling God you want to have God in your life. It's important that you do that. Thank you, God bless you, and don't forget, to reach out. We have to do everything that we can to take every position of authority away from the hands of evil men. Thank you, and God bless you.